Hello, everybody. So we've got great news on KULR. I was waiting eagerly for them to get past 1,000 Bitcoin, and they did. 1,021 Bitcoin. That is it. The thesis is unfolding. They are tapping the ATM. They are using the ATM to generate a Bitcoin yield. Now, year to date, the yield has been 200, almost 300%, 291% Bitcoin yield. They actually went a little bit above and beyond at 1,021. The 21 is a nice touch. That's what they did. How did they buy? Big question, right? How did they buy? Well, they don't really tell us how much they tapped the ATM, how much they drawn on the ATM. My hope is that they used it quite a bit, but it's possible that much of that purchase came from some of the credit facility, perhaps surplus cash from prior activities, and the ATM offering. The question as to the mix, I don't know the mix. We don't seem to know the mix, but what is for sure is that they only bought, what is it, an extra 90 Bitcoin. So that ATM was barely tapped, right? That's $10 million roughly. So that ATM was barely tapped, even if they used the entire ATM to do that. Much of the ATM is left for KULR, and as a reminder, this company is $267 million. So you can see, tapping that ATM alone, if they do the whole thing, they can double the Bitcoin, and then all of a sudden, the premium to NAV would be gone on this company, because this company is only trading at a 2.2 price to NAV. I'll get to that in a second. Another update that they posted 2 days ago, was it a day ago, I guess, was their kind of mining leasing activity. They are leasing miners. Of course, the market is having a hard time understanding these stories. We see it with the miners all the time, right? That's why they've been trading so cheaply. Imagine the market having to do some more homework and understand KULR. KULR, in my view, is discounted right now because the original shareholder base is confused. They were buying a space battery stock, and now they got a Bitcoin Treasury company with some mining activities. And so that's why I think the value is temporarily subdued. I think the value of KULR is not read by the market just yet, but it will be read by the market eventually as they get exposure to the S&P 3000, to the Russell 3000, as they get more and more coverage. Anyways, briefly, a minor way that they acquire the Bitcoin is via their Bitcoin equipment mining lease. They are operating Bitcoin mining machines. They're operating 3,570 Bitmain S19 XP. These machines are from 2022. They're a little old. They are very cheap machine, about $1,100 a machine, and that's the retail price, right? In bulk, this is probably a machine that goes for $800 a piece if you acquire it in bulk. Their mining operations, as small as they are, and they want to expand to 1.25 exahash, right? That's kind of a side thing that they're doing. They're mining in Latin America, right? So in Central America, I believe. I can't remember which country that is. Doesn't matter. The point is, they're probably not paying much for electricity, and so if you assume that they're paying 3 cents per kilowatt hour, then their revenue from operating 3,570 Bitmain machines, their revenue, i.e., how much Bitcoin they mine minus the cost of electricity, that's the quote unquote profit. But I'm calling it revenue because they're leasing the machine, so you gotta remove the lease price. Anyways, in my best case scenario, I see them making $23,000 a day in revenue. And in my worst case scenario, assuming they pay 5 cents a kilowatt hour, I see them doing 17,800 a day in daily revenue from operating these 3,500 Bitmain S19 machines. Keep in mind, of course, they're paying for the lease, but that lease, assuming they do 23,000 a day on these 3,500 miners, what's the cost of that lease? I didn't go back in the prior disclosures. I should have, because we're talking about it. But my guess is that they're paying very little for that lease. My guess is that they're making, probably more than a 50% profit on that, because when I look at these miners right now, they're actually very good in terms of ROI. With those miners, if you have access to electricity at 3 cents, you can generate 2,350 of profit, and like I said, they go for $1,100. So that's a return on investment of under 6 months. And so they're probably renting these miners from an operator who has highly depreciated them and who's having them lease them for cheap. At least that's my read of this. It's a side business. It's complex. It complexifies the story, but it's not like KULR was gonna get any credit because they already have a complex story. Their business is multi-pronged. They do space batteries. That's the biggest business, but they also do services for NASA. Like they rate batteries that go into spaceship. They just started a robotics business. Now they have a mining business and they have a Bitcoin Treasury business. Anyways, it's a company that has a lot of moving parts, which is why the market is not really understanding it. However, this is a company that has guided for 2x the revenue, 2 times their sales in 2025. Doubling their sales in 2025 is what they have guided. And because of this, it's one of these rare Bitcoin Treasury companies that actually fits in my spreadsheet of most undervalued hyper-growth stocks. And I get an enterprise value over gross profit over revenue growth of a 0.47. Not enough to ever get me interested for a regular company. But this is not a regular company. This is a company that has a Bitcoin Treasury company for which you can assess. It's a company that you can assess based on their Bitcoin Treasury operations. So I look at the space business as a bonus, as a margin of safety to the actual underlying Bitcoin Treasury operations. I want to point out too that it's trading at 10 times forward revenue. Call it 15 to 20 times past sales, prior 1 year sales, call it that. And the peers in the sector, and I'm only going to re-comment here, this is from my prior video about them. The peers in the sector, Amprius, which they have a partnership with, by the way, they do high performance batteries for drones, very similar product. They're trading at 8 times, so KULR would be a little more expensive. But if you look at SES, price to sell is 15. So in that case, if you were to compare KULR to SES, they would be trading in line, except SES or Amprius, neither of them have a Bitcoin Treasury company. And if you were to go a little further and compare it to Enovix, granted a company that has much more hype and has much more operation, they're trading at 64 price to sales, right? So that price to sales alone could be justified for a battery business. Battery and space put together is a hot business. If this company was private, in my view, it would be trading at a much higher valuation. But you couldn't do the ATM, right? You couldn't do ATM to go buy Bitcoin. There's no such thing as VCs that do that. That could be something in the future, but not generating a yield. You could not really earn a Bitcoin yield. KULR, in my view, they will continue tapping that ATM to buy Bitcoin. They have probably close to 300 million left. Maybe they used 5 million out of that ATM. I don't know. Probably not much. So we're looking at a company that's 255 million in market cap, who has ahead of it more than that in acquisition of Bitcoin. And so if you assume they execute this throughout, and let's assume price to NAV goes back to a 3, so they collect 2, right? You print a dollar bill for $3. Let's assume that, then you would be looking at a company that doubles its bag on the balance sheet. So to me, this is a company that is well positioned to double very quickly. There was a lot of short-term noise, and the short-term noise was multifold. When they did the 8-for-1 split, to be in the Russell 3000, the stock had dropped a total of nearly 50%, something like that. You can see it bounced back 30%. So it gained back 30%, and it has lost 50%. It still has about 23% to go back to where it was about 3 weeks ago. But if you take oh wow, this is, for Bitcoin Treasury company, you're gonna think this is eternity. But if you dare to take an 8-month view, you realize that the stock, despite the 20+% drop from a month ago, you realize that the stock is still up 176% prior to the adoption of a Bitcoin Treasury company. So this is a very, very highly volatile company. But I do think that the price to NAV for this company is not going to be a 2 long term. I think it could be more than a 2 for the simple reason that they are in one of the hottest sectors. And, if we get a little bit of hype about their product, about their batteries, if they keep executing on the space business part of the story, this is a company that should earn a price to NAV higher than that and sell new shares into strength to buy Bitcoin. So the NAV, KULR is a special case where the price to NAV of KULR is mostly due to the excitement of the market about the space battery business and not due about the anticipation of the market of their acquisition of Bitcoin. And I think that's very special because when I compare this to, for example, KULR's price to NAV is so low, Semler's price to NAV is so low. Why is it so low? Because the market is not placing a lot of value on the operating business, which is the QuantaFlo, the medical device. It's placing way less value than it is on KULR. So I like the stock. I like KULR. I still own every single share that I had bought and then bought back after it dipped. I'm still a little down, perhaps across the position, about 10% down is where I'm at. And I sleep very, very well at night. To me, this is a stock that I like very much. And the last thing I'll say, and this is thanks to the stock split, KULR is now eligible for margin at my broker, which is a very big deal because a stock on which you can borrow against, that stock, in my mind, is going to be more valuable than a stock that has a 100% maintenance ratio. My broker, Robinhood, for KULR, and one of the brokers, I don't know where it is at the other brokers I got, but I own KULR and Robinhood. In KULR, it's 60% maintenance ratio. That's pretty good. I like that. So anyways, this was not financial advice, not investment advice. This is only entertainment. I hope you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me next. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.